You know what, John? Sometimes you just got to say, let's just do it. Right?
That's right.
Absolutely. You know, that's what we have to do. More of just
Yep.
do it. Okay, ready for a countdown?
Ready.
You look ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the next episode of The Jersey Alchemist. And I'm your host, Dr. John Gerard Gallucci.
And I'm Philip D'Angelo.
What's going on today, brother?
Well, another day. Here we go. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to participate in some exchange of ideas. And, let's see what's going on in the world today. You know?
So there's a couple of things in current events that I find amazing. Of course, all of the food manufacturing plants seem to be going down in flames. And it's apparently been going on for 6 months. Don't know a lot about it, but that's something that certainly raises an eyebrow, because when the big guy, we all know who the big guy is, when he says food shortages and does this play right into the hands of contrived, false flag food shortages? Are they burning the manufacturing plants to bring about a shortage? I mean, if you watch the videos that are out there on the farmers saying, you've heard about food shortages and you've heard about government pressure for farmers to ditch their crops, to burn their crops. There are several farmers on the internet that will tell you that they've been offered two paths to knocking off their crops, i.e. so that they're, 1,000 acres of whatever, alfalfa or corn or soy or wheat, never makes it to the market. One, we'll do it for you and we will pour Agent Orange on your farm. Holy shit. Agent Orange. Agent Orange, if my memory serves me correctly, was created by Monsanto. But Monsanto was bought out by Bayer for $69 billion. People gasp that a certain billionaire wanted to buy out Twitter for $44 billion. Can you imagine Monsanto being bought out? And this is going back 4 years ago for $69 billion. I mean, wow. So keep your eye on Bayer. Bayer's father company was IG Farben, which was a Nazi company from the World War II era in Germany. And they were producers of lots of deadly, what I would call biocides. In other words, chemicals that killed living things. They even made the Zyklon B, which apparently was the gas that they used, in the gas chambers. Do I need to explain what the gas chambers were? If I explain that, we'll probably get the video taken down. So, IG Farben, Nazi company, biocides, Bayer. Monsanto gets into trouble because of public pressure, people. Yay, God bless you, public pressure. And public pressure came down on Monsanto because everybody started to realize that poison glyphosate was killing people, was giving people cancer. And you know what? I've said it before. I'm back. I'm on a roll.
I can tell. Let it go.
You know what? I said it for years on social media that Roundup is a poison. Don't use it. And every spring you go to these big stores that sell lawnmowers and barbecue grills and outdoor fixtures and plants and lighting and wood and lumber and screws. You know what company I'm talking about. And there's more than one type. And there's the Roundup stacked to the ceiling for sale. And now it's Roundup 365, which means the original Roundup, which is glyphosate, wasn't good enough. That poison wasn't good enough, so now they have to make it so that it lingers in the soil or wherever you put it for an entire year, for 365. It's called Roundup 365. It's glyphosate, people. It's a glycine analog, which means it gets into your bioprocessing plants. It gets into your RNA. It gets into your protein synthesis. And guess what it does? It kills your ass. It kills the plants that you pour it on. It kills the bees and the insects and the birds, and it kills you. And I've got people I know and love who are smarter than me, who tried to tell me, oh, I'll use it in my garden to keep the weeds down off my tomato plants. Wah! There's a smack my head moment. Are you kidding me? So I didn't want to be vindicated. I wanted to be dead wrong about glyphosate. But glyphosate is proven to cause cancer. It's proven so far to cause certain types of lymphoma. Guess what? No lymphoma is good. But they've yet to prove that it causes all sorts of other cancers. Right. So you're going to have, what are you going to do? You're going to spray glyphosate in your yard, and that's the yard you're going to let your dog run around in? You better start thinking, people. Okay? Stop trusting these big, huge globalist corporations because they're not your friends. Why did we get on glyphosate?
Oh, we were talking about crops. And then we went
Crops,
there.
burning crops. Yeah, right. Okay, so I talked on an earlier previous episode about why glyphosate apparently was concocted, why it was incepted by Monsanto. And glyphosate's been around since the early to mid 70s. And apparently, glyphosate production and usage goes up in a commensurate fashion to the incidence of autism. So I will reference a brilliant scientist on the internet named Stephanie Seneff, Seneff. Right. Watch her videos on glyphosate. Learn something. And for God's sakes, put the companies that make glyphosate or the companies that sell glyphosate to you, retail, put them out of business.
John, what's the purpose of these chemicals getting stronger? To kill this, kill weeds, to kill bugs, insects in the farms. I mean, at what point do they realize that it's going to be harmful to the earth, to the crops, to humans? I mean, it seems like that goes on like with no
Well, I
no
guess
care.
I've been accused of being a cynic for many years. The people that manufactured, invented glyphosate are the same people that invented Agent Orange and I think dioxin, not oxybutynin, that's another potent carcinogen. But these companies, these chemical companies are just, and you know that they're not going to spend their resources on manufacturing a compound unless there's, quote, applicability. So the applicability originally for glyphosate was as follows. And I think I mentioned this before, but for those who don't know, you're going to get a good lesson here, okay? That's the one of the 3 E's. It's entertain, elevate, educate. Well, now we're going to entertain you. We're going to elevate you because now you're going to be at a higher level of thinking, and we're going to educate you on why glyphosate was employed. And it's tens of millions of metric tons of glyphosate every year is poured onto agricultural areas, farming areas every year just in the United States. So going all the way back, let's say 500 years, farmers everywhere understood that if they had the best fields and the best conditions for growing a crop, which was high sun, good drainage, good rainfall, all of those things, right? That the best they could do, the very best they could get out of any field of produce, okay? Wheat, soy, sugar beets, alfalfa, whatever it was. 65% yield was the best they could get from the conditions that Mother Earth afforded them. But, and there's always a but, okay? The but was if the plants grew to anywhere near maturity, but the season still had weeks to months left. If there was a natural drought, guess what happened? The plants, the ground, the soil dries out. The plants desiccate, which is just a fancy word for saying drying out. And then when the plants are desiccating from the natural drought, all of them go to seed. What is that? That's God's magic secret plan, genetically built into the fruit-bearing plants, so to speak, fruit meaning vegetables and whatnot, that if they were going to get knocked off and there was going to be a drought, there was going to be a bumper crop the next year, hopefully, and an abundance of seeds. So the plants desiccate, they all go to seed, and they keel over, and the seeds fall into the soil, and the next growing season, by the grace of God and God's plan, there's a bumper crop. Well, once that was realized, people started using their noggins, and I guess their egos started to supplant their God centers like we've always been doing for thousands and thousands of years. And man, smart man, using their brain and using their egos, said, well, we can do better than the natural state of affairs. Well, how do we do that? Well, how do we create a natural drought? Well, we can't do that. I don't think they can. Maybe they can now, but they couldn't for hundreds and hundreds of years, going all the way back. They couldn't produce a natural drought. So they gave this problem to the company that was known as Monsanto, which is now apparently defunct. And Monsanto came up with a product that, if sprayed on the crops, killed the plants. And when it killed the plant, because glyphosate is a glycine analog and it affected the genetics of the plant, it affected the plant's ability to carry on its biosynthesis. Then the plants die. And when the plants die, the plants dry out and the plants go to seed, like for the ancient farmers when there was a natural drought. And guess what the yield is? Instead of 65% being the best that they could get, now it's somewhere in the 90s. And guess what? The bottom line shoots up. Wow, the great thinkers, the human beings. Isn't that just what a boon for the agricultural industry, that now farmers, through the use of glyphosate, could get a 90-95% yield every time there's a growing season. Sounds good. But, and there's always a but, the use of glyphosate has been destroying people's immune systems. It's been making people sick. It's been causing cancer, and it's linked to autism and dementia going all the way back to the mid-70s. Glyphosate. Don't use this stuff. Was that a sufficient explanation? Did you understand where glyphosate comes from, what it is, why they made it? Don't use it. It's a poison. It's a poison. Some places, and I believe Vladimir Putin in Russia banned glyphosate. Now, there were probably lots of reasons to ban glyphosate for his purposes, and maybe they were more political than bioprotective, but there are countries that will never use glyphosate again. Speaking to that end, if you're a wine aficionado, do a little research on the wines that are grown locally. Look up glyphosate in wine. Leave it in the comments after you look it up and tell us what you learned. If I say it, we'll get the video taken down. But you're going to go out, here's your homework, you're going to look up glyphosate in the wine industry and tell me where, out of all of the wines tested, 100% of them tested positive for glyphosate. Cheers. Drink up.
John, so what it comes down to, all these chemicals, stronger chemicals, use of chemicals, it really is just to affect the bottom line. It's just to make more money, and at what cost?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll take it a step further than that, right? All of these horrid chemicals that are produced, They have a purpose. They have to have applicability, otherwise the companies wouldn't make them, right? But what a boon to these people who are here in service to themselves and not here in service to others, if that chemical that they manufacture has many, many different applicabilities. So what if the globalists that manufacture this crap, their bottom lines go up, the farmers are making more money, so they're paying more fees to the glyphosate people, and what if it just happens to serve the agenda of the New World Order to depopulate the planet? Now, you might say, oh, God, here he goes. Here he goes. He's a tin hat wearer, tinfoil hat wearer. No, 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 no. More homework for you newbies. Look up the Georgia Guidestones. Georgia, as in the United States, not former Soviet Georgia. And these were kind of like a poor man's Stonehenge, erected in a field in Georgia in the United States, I believe back in the late 70s, maybe, by some fantastically wealthy person. There are big cat billionaire celebrities who I guess I won't name, who are suspect in having a hand in erecting the Georgia Guidestones. But the Georgia Guidestones have carved into them, I think in 8 major world languages, the dictum on how to lead humanity through this particular century that we're in now. And the first dictum at the top of the Guidestones is the world population will not exceed 500 million people. I'll repeat that. The first dictum on the Georgia Guidestones is the world population will not exceed 500 million people. 500 million, last time I checked,
Somebody should tell China that.
That's 500 million, I believe, is a half a billion. And right now the world population is somewhere approaching 7.77, maybe 8 billion people, right? There are people who are here in service to themselves and not in service to others, who truly believe that the world is critically overpopulated. Now, there's some other interesting statistics that I'm going to raise. Now, this is untenable, but apparently it's true. You could take every single person on the planet, all 7.7 billion of us, all of us, and stand us shoulder to shoulder, and everybody fits in the landmass that is New Jersey. Well, that's not sustainable, right? I mean, that's a pretty terrible situation, but that leaves the rest of the entire planet devoid of a single human soul. No people anywhere except for on the landmass that is New Jersey, which tells you that there's overpopulation in certain geographic locations. There's probably gluts in China and parts of the US and parts of Europe. Sure, I can understand that, right? But so what's the solution to that? There's got to be a better solution than just saying there are too many useless eaters on the planet, so we need to do something to bring the population growth down to zero, because in the United States, I think it's just about zero right now. And the people that are there, we're going to do anything we can to get them not to procreate. So if people are at peace, and if people have prosperity, what do they naturally do? What are they inclined to do? They're inclined to procreate. If things are tough and everybody's living huddled in fear of biological agents, fear of no money, fear of food shortages, do you think that families are going to be screwing their brains out and producing 5 kids for every mother and father? No. Now, there's no law against it in the United States. Apparently in China there is. Right. So
So what are we going to do with what's the reason behind the mitigating the population of the planet? What's the purpose?
The reason? I couldn't figure that out going back about a dozen or 15 years ago, 12 or 15. I couldn't figure out, well, if these globalists, and they're making tons of money off of us, let's face it, they don't go out and dig ditches. No, they produce stuff that has a purpose for us. They take it to market because, let's face it, we, the useless eaters, we are the market. And they're making billions and billions of dollars off of us. And what do? On the way to the bank, they hoodwink us and they overcharge us interest for paper fiat dollars, and they steal the gold. Because let's face it, gold and silver are the only real items of exchange, all the way back to before King Solomon. It's not paper fiat dollars. So they're making all the money, and then they realized, wait a minute, there's too much prosperity on this planet. The planet's population is approaching 8 billion people. If we don't do something about this now, in 10 years it'll be 10 or 12 billion people. Now what? Now all the beautiful South Sea islands will be crowded and we can't own them, or we can't go on vacation there. The ski slopes in Europe will be packed with people. That's how it was explained to me, that there are people who are here in service to themselves and not in service to the Creator or to others, who want your money and then they want you dead. Remember the old expression, your money or your life? No, they want both, but they want your money first, because you're no good to anybody if you're dead. You can't produce money for them. They steal your money, and then they concoct ways politically that come at you from every different angle. It's taxes, it's mortgages, it's tuitions. Think about all the different ways that we get screwed. When's the last time you looked at your cell phone bill? I had a friend of mine, God bless her, she's passed on now, but when I first met her, she says, oh yeah, I work for such and such company. And I was like, you do? I says, well, let me ask you something. How come I can't make heads or tails out of my cell phone bill? She laughed in my face. And I said, what's so funny? And she goes, that's what I'm hired to do. She goes, I'm hired to split up the ultimate bottom line, the cash flow, so that the consumer doesn't know which way they're getting hit from and why. She goes, half the fees that you see on your cell phone bill are complete bullshit fees, but the politicians allow it. And you can only imagine how and why the politicians allow it. I'll tell you how. Because when a politician that's worth $50,000 goes and becomes a national level politician, and then 15 years later, after making $100,000 a year, now they're worth $40 million. Now you know how they allow companies to do what they do. Something funny happens from here to here. Right. So again, these are the people who are here in service of themselves. A couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, something like that, maybe more, I'm in my car, pulling out of my garage, ready to go to work, and here's a well-dressed guy in kind of a casual business attire walking up my driveway with a clipboard in his hand, and some young, thin, kind of intern-looking male guy. And I'm like, okay, they're not a religious order because they're not well-dressed enough. They don't have a jacket and tie, and they don't have a big satchel, and it's usually a man and a woman. Wasn't those people. So I didn't feel threatened. So I stopped the car halfway up my driveway, and I opened the window, and I says, how you doing? Oh, let me introduce myself to you, so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. I'm so-and-so, and I'm running for the Congress. You're running for the Congress? Really? Well, what is it that you do for a living? He didn't expect me to hit him with questions, and he said, he says, oh, well, I've been in a family business for decades. Oh, okay, family business, which means they've got money if they're still going on for decades and decades. Next question. So tell me, when you get yourself into the Congress, what are you going to do about the New World Order? He should have said something. He should have been a little bit prepared to have someone like me nail him with that in a very polite fashion. He was completely gobsmacked, flabbergasted, and he said, he says, oh, brother, he goes, that's going to happen. He goes, there's nothing you can do about that. And I said, you're part of the problem. I said, you are not the solution. You are the problem, and you are trying to go to Congress to save your own ass. I said, so you're here in service of yourself, not others. I said, hey, good luck. Up the window went, off to work I went. Never forgot it. I know the guy's name. I'm not going to mention it. But you know something? The people that take the time and the effort to go to Washington are almost never there because they're in service of others. And think of the mass hypocrisy. You're supposed to go there to be in service of others. That was the whole plan. But that gets lost somewhere along the way.
Elected by the people, for the people. I believe that's how it used to go.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
When's the last time you felt like a politician truly represented you, John? I mean, whether it was a mayor, a congressman, a senator, a president.
Truly represented me?
Yeah, like
I'll tell you what.
The same values.
Funny story. Yeah. I was trying to get into medical school, and a relative of mine said, you really should get a letter of recommendation from your representative. And I said, you mean my congressperson? Exactly. I says, I don't even know who that is. I have no idea. This was years and years ago. And so I looked it up. There were no computers back then, no cell phones, so you couldn't just go, let me see, whatever. I looked it up. I called the guy's office. I made an appointment. I told him what it was about, gave him a little bit of my background info, and I set the appointment. And I showed up, jacket and tie, went to the office, and the secretary says, oh, well, Congressperson so-and-so is in Washington, but I can conduct the interview. And I was like, you're going to conduct the interview? Wasn't the whole purpose for me to come here to meet the congressperson that's my representative in my district, and that if the congressperson liked what they got from me, they would write a little letter of recommendation to the medical school system. She says, well, yeah. She says, but he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's in Washington, D.C. Okay. All right. So now I said, what do I do? She goes, I'll tell him all about you. She says, well, we'll get you that letter. And they did. They wrote me a letter. They wrote me a letter of recommendation to get into medical school. And that answers the question. When's the last time a politician or a congressperson ever did something on my behalf? Well, it's because I went and I knocked on their door, and I did my best to move them on behalf of me, and they did. Now, would that have any real sway? I don't know. I got into med school, but I don't know it was because of their 2-paragraph letter. I have no idea. I never met the guy in my life.
I mean, just look at your representation from your township. I mean, if you're a politician, say you're the mayor of your small town growing up,
Yeah.
John. You obviously know people in that small town. You grew up there.
Well, that's how you get elected.
Do you think anybody would come and ask their friend, their lifetime friend, you're the new mayor, for a favor? Well, 100%.
I think it happens all the time.
Exactly my point. So now you win the mayorship, you're doing favors for people, and now you're going to become the county executive. All right? You know people all through high school and business and work. You know people all through the county. Do you think people in the county are going to come to you and ask you for favors?
Yeah,
Of course.
of
they
course.
are. All right. So now you won that county executive seat, and now you've done favors for a bunch of people. And the favors, the bigger you get, are probably going to get bigger as well. So now you're going to run for governor
Yeah.
or senator
Right.
or congressman.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now a whole region, northern New Jersey, southern New Jersey, central New Jersey, a whole bunch of people are going to come looking for favors.
Yeah.
And if you want to get reelected, and if you want to keep your constituents happy, you might have to accommodate those favors. You know what I mean?
I just
keep
have
going.
I really, I love to laugh, and the viewers that are getting to know my demeanor